This is Don Lemon before they went into the church, when he is reporting on the group before they go in.
I'm speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I've been pleasantly surprised to see the community coming together. Diverse community. If you see this, when we first pulled up, we're like, wait a minute, which operation are we at? And as it turns out, because we were like, well, this is kind of MAGA coded, right? Saw the American flag or whatever, but these are resistance protesters. They're planning an operation that we're going to follow them on. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up. And it's Takima Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account.
Surprise people, catch them off guard, hold them to account.
MAGA coded because of their American flag.
And there's one where he says, it's so important that we have white allies in there because, they're not going to expect it. They want to catch them off guard. It's disgusting.
Yeah, and
they don't know these people.
Hold
they
that church account for what?
Right. That's what's so frustrating about it, and why it makes your blood boil, and why you have to keep reminding people of the truth about things like our case in Colorado. Yep. They think that if you're a Christian, you're a white nationalist, you're a white supremacist, and you're evil. They have no love for their neighbor, as they keep trying to say, in Minnesota, we love our neighbors. No, he said, I am pleasantly surprised how this community is coming together to do what? What did those individuals have to do with any of this? But here's what he had to say after the fact, after seeing the children terrorized and saying trauma and uncomfortable was the point.
And there's a certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country, when actually we left England because we wanted religious freedom. It's religious freedom, but only if you're a Christian and only if you're a white male, pretty much. And so, yeah, I absolutely 100%, but it's an intimidation tactic. And, I said, I don't understand how I've become the face of it when I was a journalist. I do understand that I'm the biggest name there. And I'm also, as I was on with my producers this morning, you and Kylie talk all the time. My producers were saying, I said, how did I become the face of this? And my producer said, Don, you're a gay black man in America.
The absurdity of everything that he said in that statement, of starting from the very beginning to the very end, about one, then making it all about himself by hypothetically questioning, I don't even know why I'm the face of this story. It wasn't because you were the biggest name there. It was because of your actions there. And everyone saw you for who you are, and your inability to grasp the concepts of the Constitution, the First Amendment, when you're speaking to the pastor, and the way you were filled with joy looking at a traumatized child that was in a church service worshiping God and did not know what was going to happen when they saw her nasty, vile things being spewed at people that they had never met. And now you're getting on a podcast, a very safe space for you, because Jennifer Welch is not going to push back on anything nasty you say. As a matter of fact, they got real bad soon after this clip. They didn't stop there. But he's saying and applying these motives to people he does not know, saying that they are entitled, white supremacy, that they think it's a Christian country, but actually we fled England to have religious freedom. Right. And you think that a mob going in and disrupting a church service is practicing religious freedom? Is that what you think, Don Lemon? So I don't think that you get to play this card of, I was a journalist there covering it, I don't know why I'm the face of this all of a sudden. You knew exactly what you were doing. You knew exactly what they were doing ahead of time, during, and after. And then you couldn't help it. You still have to be the face of it by doing all these interviews. And you even had Keith Ellison on, the Attorney General of the state. And we'll play that in a little bit, Logan, because it's just as shocking how little the Attorney General of that state knows about the U.S. Constitution.
That's right. And I think that's one of the big points when we talk about Don Lemon in this situation. And look, we've had our issues with him over the years, and clearly CNN did as well. We know some of the internal issues he had, how he treated other people who he worked with, how a lot of his female co-hosts or co-anchors had a lot of issues with him and the way that they're treated. There's a reason he hasn't shown up on one of the mainstream networks since then. Like, you see pretty much everybody who ends up off of CNN shows up somewhere. Don Lemon tried to go to X. We remember how that went when he had that contentious interview with Elon Musk. Now you have this moment. Again, I'm not saying a journalist doesn't have the right to be there and cover it. And I don't know where the line is in terms of this being a federal crime or not. But the idea of it being investigated doesn't surprise me, nor should it, based on the rhetoric that comes out of him. I think you can be an honest journalist and be there and ask those questions and have those discussion points. But if you're going out there not only with that, but with a real motive and looking like you, why are you leading it? You know, he said, why did I become the poster boy? I become the most famous person there. Why are you going into this church in the first place other than just, maybe you did want to just follow, but you didn't do that. So again, it gives Don Lemon some interesting coverage, because who was talking about him a few weeks ago? Nobody. I haven't heard the name Don Lemon in quite some time. So, of course, it gives him a pop. It makes it exciting because who's going to be going after him? President Trump, the administration, gives him a little bit more street cred in terms of his base. I'm not shocked by any of this. What's shocking is the actual events that went down, and that now you're claiming if you go to this church, and look, I don't know anything about the church. I don't know anything about their doctrine. I don't know anything about their beliefs. But if you're saying, hey, with a very, very wide brush, saying if you are essentially an evangelical Christian in America, you are now considered a white supremacist. Look, I don't know what kind of church you go to. Maybe it is predominantly white. Maybe it's predominantly black. Maybe it is a lot of different cultures go to your church. I wouldn't say that about really any church that I have ever attended where I felt that way. And I think that's true for most people in America. Again, I don't know anything specifically about this church per se, but it didn't feel that way from the way that it has been presented.
What we have to look at now, though, is that we know that the Attorney General is going to do nothing to protect this church and sides 100% with the people that stormed that worship service. And there are two bites here. And we'll play the first one where he is talking with Don Lemon after the events of the day. They had also talked before, but after. Let's go ahead and play bite 13. This is the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, on with D.L. Hughley and also Don Lemon on his show.
Protest is fundamental to American society. This country started in a protest. And, it's freedom of expression. People have a right to lift up their voices and make their peace. And none of us are immune from the voice of the public. So I think that you got the First Amendment, freedom of religion, and the First Amendment, freedom of expression.
So he's trying to say they're at odds with one another, but no one is immune from the voice of the public. So even if you are practicing freedom of religion, it still seems in his mind one trumps the other.
You can protest outside. You can do a lot of different things.
But here's where he was on with Erin Burnett on CNN. And she was asking, do you think that these protesters will get federal charges against them, as Harmeet Dillon, et cetera, has put forward?
And for those that don't know, Keith Ellison.
Right. He is the Attorney General of Minnesota. The top law enforcement officer.
People may not be that familiar with who the Attorney General is of each state. So I just wanted to make sure before you hear it, you know who you're hearing from.
Once again, let's play Bite 14 on CNN with Erin Burnett.
So I wish in a normal time I would say no. I'd say this is First Amendment activity. In time like this, it's just really difficult to say because the only one thing is clear. If Trump likes you, you can do no wrong. If he doesn't, he's going to use every weapon he can against you, including our criminal justice system.
He is saying to her question was about, is the federal government going to bring charges against these people? He's saying in a normal time, I would say no. I say this is First Amendment activity, but the Trump administration is going to go after people they don't like and not. How does he not know, one, that the First Amendment activity was them worshiping in there, and that is protected as well. And that storming the place of worship, interrupting that First Amendment activity is not just First Amendment activity. That there are ways they could have been outside protesting, even though if they were too loud, that could have violated the FACE Act, as many pro-life protesters have been charged with. But here's the only statement that I've been able to find from Tim Walz. It's not him putting out a statement on his website, not him putting it out on X.
Confronted.
He was asked by a journalist with the Daily Signal, for a comment, and a spokesperson respond from the press office that said, spokesperson, they had to clarify.
Yeah.
Quote, the governor has repeatedly and unequivocally urged protesters to do so peacefully. While people have the right to speak out, he in no way supports interrupting a place of worship, end quote. That's it. Pretty lukewarm. Couldn't have said, this is exactly the opposite of what I've been talking about. He couldn't have said they have the right to worship peacefully. He just says he in no way supports interrupting a place of worship. Pretty weak when you've seen how aggressive he has been against the Trump administration in all of his dozens of press conferences.
Well, it's all narratives.
It's sickening.